Hello, so in this video we're taking a look at the latest guidelines on how to stay safe on driving lessons and driving tests during COVID-19. Do you have to have the windows down in the winter when it's cold? Is it safe to have the heating on? What about driving tests? We'll look at all those things and more in this video, but there are two things I'd like to say before we begin. First of all, the video you're seeing playing in the background was filmed in 2016. So that's not how I'm doing lessons at the moment. It's just some background video for you to watch as you listen to this. Secondly, I'm not a health and safety expert. I'm not medically trained. So please don't take any of this as legal advice. This is just me trying to help you. And I'd love to get your feedback in the comments. Let me know what you think about these things. Do you agree or not? So let's have a look at the latest official government guidelines for ventilation in vehicles. It says, switch ventilation systems on while people are in the vehicle and set to drawing fresh air in and not recirculating air. So what does that mean about drawing fresh air in and not recirculating air? Well, in most cars, pretty much every car now, there is a recirculating air button, and that keeps the same air in the car. It's made so that when you go through areas where there are unpleasant smells or maybe pollution, you can press that button and it helps to block out a lot of the outside air. Now, of course, during these times, you don't want to be blocking the outside air. You actually want the air to be circulating and not having the same stale air in the car. One way to know if you're safe or not is if the air is starting to smell stale or to taste stale, then you are at higher risk of catching something that is in the air. In every vehicle I've been in, which is hundreds of them, you've always had to press an extra button to turn on the recirculating air feature. So if you just turn the blower or the heater on, as long as you don't press that button, then that makes it safer. It says to improve ventilation, windows can also be opened, partially if it's cold. Now that's an important point because I went out and did a lesson just a few days ago, and both me and the pupil were shivering. I had 2 pairs of socks on, 2 pairs of trousers on, a long sleeve shirt, a sweater, a coat, gloves, and I was still freezing cold and I had a face covering on as well. And even with all that I was freezing cold and I was actually starting to feel quite sick. And the people said that they were feeling quite uncomfortable as well. And this is a really important point. Yes, we've got to do all we can to avoid catching this virus, but it's no good doing that if you're putting yourself at risk in other ways. If you're having the windows fully open and the rain's pouring in, you're getting soaked and it's affecting your driving, that could be even more dangerous. The next point's very interesting. It says heating should also be left on to keep the vehicle warm. Now originally it was said that we should not have the heating on because germs live in that system and that's where they breed. But apparently it's only the air conditioning units where they actually breed, and the heating itself is actually okay to have on. Now there was an interesting thing happened in America back in April 2020. The police who were using Ford vehicles contacted Ford and asked them if there was anything they could do to help kill COVID inside a car. Now it's known that high temperatures kill viruses, so Ford actually changed the heating system on the police cars so that it got much hotter than it normally would. I think they put it up to something like 180 degrees or something like that. And they changed the way that the computer system works in the police vehicles so that the police could leave the vehicles running with nobody sitting in them, and for 15 minutes the engine would blast the car with an unpleasantly warm temperature. Now I didn't know this, but normally car heaters are programmed so they would never give out a temperature which will be dangerous to humans. It caps the limit of the heat. But they've now overridden that, so for 15 minutes you can have the heater on so warm that it will kill viruses in the car. I think that's an interesting feature. Do you think everyone should have that? The drawback is that it burns more fuel because the engine idles at much higher revs. I believe that it idles at just under 2,000 revs, where it normally idles at just under 1,000 revs. But what do you think about that? Is that a good idea? It does burn more fuel, but it also burns the virus. This goes on to say, for vehicles that carry different passengers, such as taxis, and that includes driving school cars, clear the air between different passengers so the vehicle is aired before anyone else gets in. Well, I've been doing that on lessons. I've been driving home with the windows fully down to blast the air around the car and clear the air. Opening doors where it's safe to do so will help to change air quickly. Opening windows fully for a few minutes can also help to clear the air in the vehicle. Now, you should also wear a face covering on driving lessons. I believe at the moment that isn't actually law, but that may be wrong because things are changing so fast it's quite hard to keep up with it all. I do believe in places like supermarkets it's now law to wear a face covering, and I think it may be for taxis as well. But for driver lessons they haven't specifically said. But we have to use common sense here. A lot of people are trying to get around the rules and saying, well, it doesn't specifically say this and that. The best law of all is the law of common sense. Now, for driving tests, there are a lot of guidelines, so I'm not going to read through all these because it will take a long time, but I will put a link in the description below to the page where you can read about them yourself. When you go on a driving test, however, I could tell you this from first-hand experience of doing these. The way they're doing it is that when you get to the vehicle, they will ask you to open the doors and then open the windows. The examiner will not get in the vehicle until at least one window on each side of the car is open. They want them down generally about halfway, so normally the front two windows have to be halfway down. You can have them done up slightly more if it's very cold or there is bad weather, but each examiner will tell you what to do when you go on your test. You must have the windows open though, and you must wear a face covering unless you have a very good reason not to do so. Now, certain test centres are not allowing you to do a test without a face covering. I believe this is up to the examiner's discretion. So some examiners will do driving tests without you wearing face covering, but some won't. I do believe that's up to the examiners to choose, but if you can't wear a face covering for a good reason, such as if you have asthma or if it would cause you undue stress, then you do need to tell them that when you book your driving test. They will then attempt to allocate you an examiner who will be able to accommodate your needs, but you need to tell them when you book the test. Don't just tell them when you turn up for the test. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. Do please let me know if you've been taking lessons and tests in these tough times. What precautions have you been taking? What's your instructor been doing? Check out these other videos on the screen now for more help with your driving tests and driving lessons. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you again soon for more videos.